Thank you, Mr. President. Gershom Bassey, Cross River South. The Senate, worried about Nigeria's infrastructure deficit in the transportation sector and the need for a consolidated, effective regulatory approach to address this crisis. The Senate is further concerned that according to a November 2020 report by Moody's Investors Services, it is estimated that Nigeria would require at least $3 trillion over 30 years to close its infrastructure deficit, which signifies the level of infrastructural neglect and decay. The Senate is further concerned that many infrastructural shortcomings in the country have been as a result of economic, administrative, and legislative deficiencies. Legislation such as the Nigerian Railway Corporation Act 1995 remains in effect and does not create an enabling environment for public-private partnerships in Nigeria's infrastructural development. Legislative bills such as the National Road Fund Establishment Bill and the Federal Roads Authority Establishment Bill, which were not assented to by the executive, sought to restructure the legal framework for the financing, ownership, administration, and maintenance and sustainable sources of funding for infrastructure development. The Senate is aware that the privately managed Infrastructure Corporation of Nigeria Limited, InfraCorp, was established by the executive in February 2021. It is to be funded by the Central Bank of Nigeria, Nigerian Sovereign Wealth Investment Authority, and the African Finance Corporation, with a seed capital of 1 trillion naira. The executive seeks to use this independently managed entity to bridge the nation's infrastructure gap through end-to-end bankable projects that will provide a firm basis for increasing national economic growth. The Senate recognizes that this is a commendable initiative. However, given the intricate regulatory framework that is required to guarantee a workable, transparent, accountable, and effective apparatus for infrastructural development, it is essential that a legislative and executive synergy is established in the execution of their respective functions to this end. The Senate further recognizes that careful articulation through relevant government and private stakeholder collaboration is essential in order to create a modern legal and economic framework that is in line with the international standard and pertinent to the Nigerian infrastructure ecosystem. The Senate is convinced that an overhaul of archaic legislation and the introduction of a relevant modern legal framework would foster development in the transportation sector. The enactment of comprehensive and effective legislation, such as the Nigerian Railway Corporation Act, Repeal and Reenactment Bill, National Roads Fund Bill, Federal Road Authority Bill, and any other relevant legislation. The Senate is further convinced that such an infrastructural framework would support public-private partnerships that secure sustained funding and the provision of technical management and operation expertise. It would also seek to guarantee a well-aligned and non-conflicting regulatory entity backed by sound legislative framework and clear management and implementation policies within a seamless system that fosters infrastructural development and economic growth. Accordingly, the Senate resolves to 1, mandate the Committees on Legislative Compliance and National Planning to invite the Governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria and the Chief Executive Officer of the Nigerian Sovereign Investment Authority. Also invite the Attorney General of the Federation and the Honorable Minister of Works and Housing Honorable Ministers of Works and Housing, Finance, Budget and National Planning, and Transportation to address the committees on the proposed legal and economic framework for establishment of the newly created Infrastructure Corporation of Nigeria Limited, InfraCorp, and articulate the regulatory parameters that will ensure a synergy between the powers and operations of the InfraCorp and those of existing or proposed institutions established pursuant to this legislation in order to ensure seamless operations within Nigeria's infrastructure ecosystem. 2, mandate the committees on legislative compliance and national planning to A, review the existing legal framework regulating the financing and administration and management of infrastructural development sector in order to articulate an effective structure that secures a sustained source of funds for infrastructural development and creates an enabling environment for private participation. B, identify and repeal archaic legislation and policies that are at odds with international best practices and impedes on the establishment of a seamless framework for infrastructural development. And C, take the necessary steps to establish relevant legislation and policies that will promote a more effective and efficient infrastructural development ecosystem in Nigeria. Mr. President, I so move.
President, I remain Muhammad Adamu Aliaru representing Kebbi Central. Mr. President, I to second this motion. There is actually infrastructural deficit in Nigeria, and the only way we can fill this deficit is by injecting capital from the private sector. That is by way of syndicating what we call public-private partnership. Whether it is road sector you're talking about, railway sector, power sector, the story remains the same. Even Habo, Mr. President, of recent we have seen private sector coming into Nigeria to construct ports under public-private partnership. Lekki Port, for example, is one of them. It is indeed a success story. But we need very strong legislation to do this. We need legislation that can protect the investor so that they will feel confident to come and invest and recoup whatever they invest. Since the inauguration of 9th Senate, my committee has been receiving quite a number of investors that want to come and invest under the road sector. But their fear is that the enabling legislation are not there. Therefore, we need to look at all legislation relating to either Nigerian Railway Corporation, if need be, and bundle the Nigerian Railway Corporation Act and allow private sector to come and invest. We need to look at legislation regarding the road sector. We need to even look at legislation regarding the harbor, even though a lot of private people are now coming into it. But I agree with what the mover of this motion said. We have to call the CBN, the Sovereign Investment Authority, to come and brief the Senate on the proposed infrastructure company, where 1 trillion naira has already been deposited. And other investors like African Development Bank, IFC, Sovereign Investment Authority, they are all coming to fund this infrastructure company. And if we do this, it will go a long way in solving the infrastructure deficit we have in Nigeria today. Mr. President, another very important issue that needs to be addressed is security. No investor will come and invest his money where there is insecurity and uncertainty. This is basic. We just have to solve the present security challenges we are facing today. I doubt very much if an investor will come and invest trillions of naira in an economy that has insecurity and uncertainty and political upheaval virtually everywhere. This is the reality, Mr. President. I therefore support or second this very important motion. I urge my distinguished colleagues to do the same. It is important we address the infrastructure deficit. At the same time, we have to address the security challenges of this country. Thank you very much.
Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, my highly respected and distinguished colleagues, I can say nothing at this point, Mr. President, without 100% agreeing with the position that has been adduced by Senator Aleru on this issue, and also by the very good thought that is behind this motion in general. In addition, I think that the committees that are important for this interrogation and for this kind of harmonization that the bill, that the motion is recommending, Committee of Works will have to be there. Our Committee on Power will have to be there. Our Committee on Land Transportation will have to be there. And our Committee of Marine Transport will also have to be there. Because these committees are in charge of the various sectors that are concerned with the management and investment for the development of the infrastructure, of this country. So maybe when we consider the prayers, an additional prayer may come to involve these committees in the issues that this motion, is concerned with. In addition, Mr. President, I think we have gone very, very far, particularly in the area of land transport. There is the National Land Transportation Commission bill, which has already passed the Senate, and I think is looking for concurrence in the House. There is also a bill on the railway sector reforms that is also being passed by this Senate, which is, by the time the provisions, in that amendment is approved, the bill comes out, I think it will resolve a lot of the issues that have been raised inside this motion. But I think we have also the National Road Fund and several others. So I think the involvement of this Committee on Works, Power, Land Transport, Marine Transport, so that we can sit down and harmonize, the infrastructural investment regime in this nation is very important. So maybe after consideration, we can come with a prayer, so that these other committees, that are vital, development of the national infrastructure, are also involved in whatever decisions and work. But it involves a lot of work, because it will involve going through the entire legislation that we have in our infrastructure sector to ensure that the new corporation, the infrastructure corporation, the bill that establishes worked in harmony with the other legislations, that are existing in the infrastructure sector. I commend this motion, and I support the prayers, maybe with some additional prayer at the end. I thank you.
Thank you very much. Distinguished colleagues, I put the question. Let me observe what the leader said. I think, leader, we don't need an additional prayer. We can amend prayer 1, because prayer 1 definitely is looking a little bit lopsided. Probably that is where we'll need committees on finance, works, power, marine, and land transport, with the Committee on National Planning and Economic Development as the lead committee here. Is that okay? Because we don't have to create an additional, we just amend this one with the Committee on National Planning and Economic Development as the lead committee. Then this is a joint committee because of the importance of this particular matter. So if that is taken, then those in favor of prayer 1 as amended, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Secretary, take note, the lead committee is National Planning and Economic Development. Prayer 2, mandate the committees, well, we maintain the same as prayer 1. the same committees were named, mandate the committees as named in prayer 1 to review the existing legal framework regulating the financing, administration, and management of the infrastructure development sector in order to articulate an effective structure that secures a sustained source of funds for infrastructure development and create an enabling environment for private participation. Those in favor of prior 2, say aye. Those against, 2A, those against say nay. The ayes have it. Prior 2B, identify and repeal archaic legislation and policies that are at odds with international best practices and impede on the establishment of a seamless framework for infrastructure development. Those in favor of prior 2B, say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. And prior 2C, take the necessary steps to establish relevant legislation and policies that will promote a more effective and efficient infrastructure development ecosystem in Nigeria. Those in favor of prior 2C, say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Thank you very much, Leader. And I commend you to the sponsor or the mover of this motion. It's a very timely intervention for us to give some really jab to the infrastructure development of our country. But then again, like Senator Mohamed Adamalor has said, without a secured environment, no funding will be easily available because business people rush to where they have guarantee. So we have to continue to work on the security of our country.